to another One Thing. I'm your host, Neil Bauer, and I'm joined as always by the lovely Kim and Jody from ePayments. This week, I am beyond elated. I started off being just excited, as I normally am for a One Thing, but then I went from that to this, the beyond elated spectrum, because I just found out a little bit more about our guest. I'm going to let Kim introduce, because she's the one who brought this wonderful person to the table. Kim?
Thank you, Neil. So we have a special treat for y'all today. Some call her a modern day gypsy and mystic. Jody and I are very lucky and grateful to call her a dear friend and probably one of the most genuine people that I know. She is an entrepreneur, an author, a teacher, a holistic guide. She is the creator of Rock, Paper, Spirit, which we will have a little fun with later on in the show. She is the founder, director, and dream keeper of North Haven, which is a refuge for the broken. And we are so excited to introduce Nessa Hearn today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Awesome opportunity to be with you guys today. I'm excited too.
Thank you. Well, good stuff. Well, so you do so many things. And before we ask you any questions or get into a conversation, could you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now and what's dearest to your heart these days?
Yeah, lately I've been spending a lot of time in the forest just getting naked with my crystals and no, no, I'm kidding. Only on Saturdays. Only on Saturdays. That's no, my heart and the majority of my time goes to North Haven, which is a nonprofit. We are a private healing retreat set in the mountains of Washington State. We work with families and individuals that have suffered really extreme situations of trauma and tragedy and loss. And we bring people out here to work with them and put them in nature and get them taking the beginning steps towards healing that trauma. And we take a real holistic approach. And so before I birthed the nonprofit, I was in private practice and I worked with women that had chronic pain conditions. And so that is where a lot of my understanding on how to take a holistic approach to helping people heal, that's where it started. And then, you know, on Saturdays, naked with the crystals. So
I'm doing that this weekend. Well, I think that, you know, that kind of leads me to my one thing. You know, you're such a wealth of knowledge. And for everyone out there, I mean, Jody and I have been on a journey with Nessa. And she is a master of transformation. And I think that a lot of people in this world are really hurting right now. And everybody's struggling with something. And in regards to the one thing, I know you had mentioned to me that we are one thought away from changing our reality. And I would love for you just to expand on that for our audience, if you could.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have enough exposure to quantum thinking to kind of recognize that the sum total of your reality and your life experience right now is every emotion, every thought, every experience that you've had. And thanks to our core beliefs and our cognitive biases, it's really easy for us to kind of build a prison where we can't seem to go beyond. It's like this version of you cannot experience anything other than what you have created thus far. So in order to go beyond and get out of that box is you need one new thought. New thoughts take us new places. And we're really like so blessed because we live in the age of information. But like I was telling you, Kim, one of the problems with that is we are recycling information. You will notice if you really keep track throughout your day-to-day life, you are kind of caught in a loop of just repeating what you're hearing. And original thought, spiritual thought, healing thought is diminishing. And so I really enjoy encouraging people to just unplug, get quiet, and develop one new thought that can take you someplace new in your day.
Beautiful. Nessa, you have done so much amazing work with people that have been through the most horrific, catastrophic events of their life that you never could have prepared for. We've had a long relationship, but I've never asked you this. I'm like, what is one thing when people are dealing with something so horrific, and I have to imagine there's so much unforgiveness that goes through their body because of, being put in a situation that they couldn't have prepared for. What would be the one thing you could tell any of us about unforgiveness and how to work through that? I know that's a loaded question and much more than a one thing, but just one little tidbit to maybe help if someone's going through something horrific like that.
Jody, that's an excellent question because, if you have had a child murdered or you have been the victim of a mass shooting, there is a lot of anger, there is a lot of resentment that builds. And I think we have a misconception about forgiveness that it is a moment in time when we finally become ready to release another person, release a circumstance, release ourself, release God. But I don't think that that is necessarily true. Forgiveness is something that we have to learn to live out of the center of. And when you've gone through really traumatic things, for years and years, you will need to re-forgive each and every day and continue living out of that like it's a spirit, not a little blip on a timeline.
Beautiful.
That's amazing. We had a conversation with my son. There's so many, like we're talking about the universe here. There's so many different variables, and you're talking quantum too. I have like 5 different splinters off of my original one thing, just based on the things that you have explained already. I had a conversation with my son about I don't see time as much now that I'm older as a like point A to point B, like I used to, and I used to liken things back as somebody from Robots and Pencils would be saying. I used to liken things back to like when the Nintendo 64 launched or when the PlayStation 2 launched. Like that's how I used to think console launches. But I think of time like a big brick of meatloaf, and we're like, it's all happening at once, right? Time is all happening at once, and we're just passing through all of it. So it's looking at time differently. The problem is when you're doing that, you are a point in time and you're dealing with everything in that meatloaf at that one time. So you could be going through meatloaf and it's just fine and dandy. And I'm in the woods with my crystals and I'm there and centered and able to clear my mind. But then there's a point where you're going through meatloaf and they're going to be taking away your green space and putting 5 houses in it. Or I'm having some massive challenges dealing with this PTSD that I've been carrying my entire life. Like it all happens at once. So it's so amazing to hear that come out in these 2 conversations already. So I'm sorry to pivot right into my one thing, but it's like you talk about moving or changing one thought. As you're traveling through the universe of meatloaf, getting to that point is challenging. Getting to that one thought. You can think, I just need that one thought. What's the one thing that you would do to nudge somebody in the direction of getting to that one thought or clearing their minds for that one thought?
Excellent question. You guys are really these are good questions. Okay. So first of all, time is linear to us because we are within it. But I definitely do like to look at time from that quantum perspective and understand that what we do, it travels in both directions because it is linear. So this is a difficult thought, but the things that we do affect the present and the past. So in order to get people to a place where they want to have that one new thought, they want to affect their timeline, the best way to do that is to call them into the present moment, because the most powerful piece of time that you will ever experience is now. It's right now. And getting people to be still is a huge component of getting them to recognize the power in the present. And so it's hard to do. I mean, we are surrounded by media. We're busy. We've got a million things on a million to-do lists. This is why I chose to take people into the wilderness to start their healing journey, because there is something about unplugging that slows time down and it pulls us like a vortex into the present moment. It reintroduces us with what it feels like to be in our body and to be totally present for the now.
That is so cool. I had just heard something yesterday that said that 45% of your time people spend thinking about the past or the future. So it just shows like how we are just not in the present moment, that often. I mean, myself included. So thank you. That was really helpful.
And when we go through hard things and tragedy, especially, it tends to speak to us and say, life is just happening to you. You have absolutely no control here. You are a victim to the universe. You will always be a victim. And that's not true. Yes, there are circumstances. Yes, things happen that we are not in control of. But the majority of our reality, we are in control of. And no matter what we've been through, we're just one new thought away from taking our life in a new direction. That's hope.
Love that. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I know that on your book you say when you're bringing people and guiding them through transformation, that essentially you want them to understand that they are becoming the variable in every situation. And that, there are people that try to separate even professional from personal. And one of your comments that you had said was that we cannot evolve professionally if we fail to evolve personally. And I love that because it isn't separate. It's just how people try to separate spirituality even from work. And that's not the case. It's like Neil said, it's the meatloaf. We're all in there.
We're the meatloaf.
Yeah, we're the meatloaf.
No, our logical mind is always trying to dissect and compartmentalize things because it gives us maybe like a false sense of control. I see this so much in the modern medical and psychiatric professions too. We come at the problem and we dissect it from the whole of the person, and it's a universal truth in life. You are mind, body, soul, spirit. You can logically try to cut these into pieces, but really, if you want to affect change on any level, you have to do it holistically. So these things, these universal principles and laws, they kind of transfer into every spectrum of our life, whether we're trying to heal or we're trying to advance professionally, spiritual laws, man.
Well, and again, I am so happy that you're here because so many things seem out of our control. I have somebody who was in the payment space who lost their son to an opiate addiction, right? Athletic, a skier, somebody who was constantly like super open friendly, wound up getting injured in a ski accident, took opiates and wound up in about 6 months going to suicide. She left the payments industry and became a champion for fighting against pharmaceutical companies pumping these things out. She was instrumental in getting that out the door where it's like, hey, we got to start suing these people. Then she sees those people get off and be like, there's no consequence for those people. So she's in a place right now where she, for 6 years, she's lost a son. She is like lost to these people who have billions, incomprehensible amounts of money.
Big pharma.
Now it gets worse because she doesn't trust pharmaceutical companies. And so she's had to deal with all of that, a loss of a son, a loss of a case against a very corrupt system. And then she is now being lambasted and spammed and canceled on social media because she doesn't want to get a vaccine, because she does not trust that institution. So I feel like this is a wonderful woman, somebody I've known for 15 years as well. And I've watched her just get lose a son, like you mentioned, fight against a system that seems completely hell-bent to take as much as they can, and then to be called an anti-vaxxer because she doesn't trust a system that is getting rich off of this vaccine passport stuff. So I completely empathize with her, but I am in a super mind. I'm the 1% of people that won't call her anti-vaxxer. So that's the kind of stuff I think that you can, if you can shift people's thoughts away from that. And I think that what you're doing is giving people the space, the distance, getting them away from technology, away from the noise, the chatter, is extremely beneficial to get people's humanity back.
Agreed. And that's sad. That's sad that that's happening to her. I feel compassion for her as well. And, when we take a stand and we fight for what is right, we can expect resistance. That's just, it's unfortunate, but it is. My message to her and so many other people is we are more than what is happening to us. Mm-hmm. We are more than what we are experiencing. And we have this profound ability that very few people ever learn to really tap into, to step away from our situational circumstances. That's the what is happening to us, and come into a place of identity and who we are in the present moment. That's a powerful experience because all of us have stuff in our lives that is unhappy. All of us have stressors. All of us have resistance points. All of us have people around us that create some toxicity and some stress and tension. But when you learn how to separate from circumstances and to be, and that's one of the jobs and the reason why I encourage the discipline of prayer and meditation, it brings you into the present moment. It shows you that there is more happening in the universe, even the universe within you. In Hebrew, that's called the Olam Katan. It's the universe within. There is so much more that you are experiencing than just what the brain is allowing you to see. And we can get really myopic in our circumstances and our situations, and we can kind of miss the glory of life. So that's why you don't have to travel hundreds of miles to come see me and come up onto this mountain. It's easy to create stillness points in our life and experience healing and process differently and have new thoughts and get naked with crystals. If you want to, do it.
Well, maybe we should show a little flavor, because I'm sure that this will of rock paper spirit, because it's fascinating and it's fun, and I don't care who you are. We've done this with so many different people where Nessa pulls out her rocks and cards, and actually from different events I've had with her, I have mine like right here in my office. And I keep them right here on my lamppost, and I look at them throughout the day. And sometimes when I need comfort and I need to just step away from what's happening, I'll grab it and I'll read it and I'll say, yeah.
Awesome. So I will explain. This began years ago. I really like tangible tools, things that I can hand people that they can touch. And there's a textile element to things to be able to get encouragement into people. And so, when people have been through so crazy of trauma, they're buried in grief. And we have to kind of excavate a little bit to find them and to find their heart. Mm-hmm. So what I started doing years ago is I would take quiet time and I would meditate and I would pray and I would ask for words of really powerful encouragement. And then I would write them down. And then I printed little decks on, playing cards and just started printing the words on them. And I love rocks and crystals. I've been a rock hound my entire life. Like as a kid, some people had toys. I had rocks. I loved rocks and I loved marbles. So I thought, what is a way that I can help people get this word, the correct word at the correct time to them? What is something that we could put out and they could pick? And rocks was an obvious for me. Rocks also kind of carry a vibrational energy to them. And so people are going to be drawn to what they need. It's cool. So let's do a rock reading. Okay. oftentimes when I do this, people go, is this tarot? It isn't. There's no elements of tarot to this. It's just encouragement, and you will always draw what you need. So today we have 3 rocks. I've got this one. This is a fossilized Ortholoceras. There is a prehistoric little sea creature fossilized in here. And so it's just a beautiful, neat stone. Then we have a septarian nodule. And this is prehistoric mud that came into contact with magma. And it created this very old piece of fossilized earth. And this is really beautiful. I mean, it just doesn't do it justice on camera, but looks like a dragon's eye. Then we have a beautiful little crystallized agate here. That's really pretty.
Oh.
So one of these stones is going to call to you, and you'll just make your selection and kind of hold it in your mind, okay? Okay, if you chose this stone, this is your word. You do not need more money to have the life you truly crave. Adventure is calling to you. To accept the invitation, you must learn to travel light. Less can actually equal more. It is time for a change, darling. Okay. If you chose this stone, this is your word. Oh, this is a heavy word. You are worthy of life-giving relationships. You cannot heal if you keep allowing toxic people to destroy your heart. Move away from the unhealthy and towards those that will not use you, because you are worthy of love. Okay. Then if you chose this stone, this is your word. In the midst of the cocoon, things can feel uncertain. Change is hard. You are in the process of a great metamorphosis. Stay teachable and hold tightly to faith. You are transforming into something breathtaking. Only believe. So that is rock, paper, spirit. That is nothing more than a tool. But encouragement is really powerful. And that's why I love this podcast. I watch this podcast because you guys are giving the world something positive, something encouraging. And that's becoming harder and harder to find nowadays. Encouragement is so powerful that when it lifts our heart, it changes our frequency and our vibration. Every single thought that we think creates an emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. Those emotions take us down the timeline, and they really have a lot to do with our trajectory, where we end up, what we experience. So if you really want to have a better life, the key is to learn to change that internal narrative, which is hard to do if we're going to watch news all day and we're going to surround ourselves with negativity and negative people. You've got to cultivate this, and you can't do it by pushing a button. This takes a lifetime, little changes, little steps. But as you surround yourself with positivity, it begins to change your emotional energy. And when you change those two things in synchronization, you will change your reality, your outcome, your health, all of it.
Well, I didn't expect to almost lose my collective shit on this. Like choking up halfway through that thing. Joke's on you. I didn't pick a rock. I just said all 3. I'll take all 3. And of course, all 3 have impact on exactly how I'm feeling.
That's awesome. I've never had anybody say to me, I'm going to take all 3. And what that tells me, though, is that you are hungry for encouragement and you are hungry to hear something that is going to realign you in a new direction. So that kudos, that's cool. That's very cool. And, you know, I can't totally relate to your position because I'm like 950 years old. So I'm way older than you, but.
Do you have any yurts to rent up there? Because I'll be running up. I need a yurt.
You and your wife, your family, you are invited, and these girls should bring you up to hang out sometime. And I love you guys.